The sun had not yet risen over the endless horizon of the American frontier. A pale frost clung to the grass, and the breath of every living thing turned white in the air. In that haunting silence of dawn, a small wagon stood broken on the edge of a vast desert plain. Inside it, huddled beneath a thin quilt, was a 6-year-old girl named Emily. Her father had gone in search of help after their horses collapsed from exhaustion. The chill had turned cruel overnight, and even the fire her mother built had long faded to smoke. Emily's small fingers trembled as she pulled her only blanket closer around her shoulders, trying to keep her warmth from slipping away into the cold. Then, in the distance, she heard something, soft, muffled, and desperate. A cry. Not of a grown man, not of an animal, but the faint, trembling sound of a baby. She turned her head and saw movement in the tall grass near the dry riverbed. At first, fear gripped her heart. Her mother had told her stories of Apache tribes who roamed these lands, proud, fierce, and protective of their own. But as Emily watched, what emerged from the mist wasn't a warrior. It was a woman, a young Native American mother, barely more than 20, wrapped in a thin brown shawl, her dark hair tangled by the wind. In her arms, she cradled a baby so small and fragile that its cries barely broke the morning silence. The woman's lips were blue with cold. She looked weak, as if she hadn't eaten for days. Her eyes met Emily's, wide, cautious, yet filled with silent pleading. There was no anger, no threat, only the primal desperation of a mother trying to keep her child alive. Emily felt something stir deep within her, a feeling she couldn't name. Fear told her to stay in the wagon. Compassion told her to step out. And somehow her tiny bare feet moved before her mind could decide. She approached slowly, clutching her faded blue blanket in her small hands. The cold bit at her skin, but she didn't stop. The woman didn't move either. She just stood there, trembling, as if afraid to frighten the child. When Emily reached her, she could see the baby's tiny face, pale, trembling and covered in frost. Without a word, Emily unfolded her blanket and gently placed it over the baby. Her small hands tucked the edges close, just like her mother used to do for her. The baby stopped crying. For a moment, there was only silence, broken only by the sound of the wind whispering across the plains. The native woman looked down at Emily, her eyes glistening with tears that froze almost as soon as they fell. She tried to speak, but her English was broken. "You give?" she asked softly. Emily nodded. "The baby's cold." The woman bowed her head. Thank you." Her voice cracked under the weight of gratitude and exhaustion. She clutched her baby tighter, wrapped now in the only warmth she had been offered in days. Emily smiled shyly and took a step back. That's when the sound came, distant but growing, the rhythmic pounding of hooves. Emily turned her head and saw them appear from behind the ridges. A line of horsemen, tall and proud, wearing feathers and leather, their faces painted with the colors of war. Her heart froze. These were Apache warriors. Her mother screamed her name from the wagon, but Emily couldn't move. The warriors galloped closer, surrounding the woman and the child, and Emily. One of them, older and broader than the rest, dismounted. His face was stern, unreadable. He spoke something to the woman in their native tongue. She replied, her voice weak but filled with emotion, clutching the baby tighter. The chief's gaze turned toward Emily. His eyes were dark, sharp as obsidian. He looked down at the small girl standing in the frost, barefoot, her hair tangled by the cold wind. Around her, armed men on horseback waited for his command. One hand movement could decide her fate. But instead the chief knelt, slowly, solemnly. He reached for the baby, now wrapped in Emily's blanket. His hand brushed the fabric, then he looked up at the girl. For a long moment neither spoke. Then, in a deep, resonant voice, he said, "Little one, brave heart." Emily didn't understand the words, but she could feel what they meant. The man rose, lifted his hand, and spoke to his warriors. To her shock, every one of them lowered their weapons. The cold wind carried the sound of their voices, low, respectful, like a prayer. The chief turned back to her and touched his chest. "You, friend." Her mother rushed from the wagon, terrified but unable. to stop the tears that filled her eyes. When she saw what was happening, the warriors were not there to attack. They were there to protect. The young Apache woman spoke softly, tears shining in her dark eyes. "He is my father," she said, pointing to the chief. "He come to find me, find baby. You save baby." She took Emily's small hand in hers, pressing it to her heart. "You save us." The chief spoke again, gesturing toward the broken wagon. Within minutes, his warriors dismounted and began repairing it. They gave the family food, water, and even 2 strong horses. The cold morning turned into a day no one would forget. As the sun rose fully, spilling gold across the desert, Emily's father appeared in the distance, leading another horse. He froze when he saw what was before him, his wife crying, his daughter standing beside a group of Apache warriors, and their leader shaking his head with quiet respect. The chief walked to Emily's father and extended his hand. "Your child? Strong heart," he said. "She give life. We remember." Emily's father, speechless, shook his hand. In that brief moment, 2 worlds that had been enemies for generations stood together, not in hatred, but in honor. When the tribe rode away later that morning, the woman turned once more and raised her hand in farewell. Emily waved back, her little face glowing in the sunlight. The blue blanket was gone, but something greater had taken its place, something that would never fade. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness carries more power than any weapon. Emily didn't know it then, but her name would be spoken in that tribe for years to come, the little girl who gave warmth to a freezing baby and melted the hearts of warriors. And as the sun climbed higher, Emily's mother whispered softly, "You did something special today, my love." Emily smiled, still watching the distant riders. "I just wanted the baby to be warm." The desert wind carried her words away, but her story had already taken root, forever part of the land, the legend and the heart of the Wild West. Weeks passed since that unforgettable morning on the frost-covered plains. The air had grown warmer, and the snow that once bit at their feet had given way to soft winds carrying the scent of desert sage. Life on the ranch had slowly returned to normal, or at least, that's what Emily's parents told themselves. But for Emily, nothing felt the same anymore. Every sunrise reminded her of the woman's trembling smile, the soft cry of the baby, and the silent respect of the Apache chief who had called her brave heart. Her father had repaired the wagon completely, and even built a small stable beside their cabin. Life was calmer now. Yet each evening, as the sky turned gold and red over the mesas, Emily would look toward the horizon, half expecting to see horses riding through the dust. Her mother often caught her doing it. "They're gone, sweetheart," she'd say gently. "You did a wonderful thing, but their world is far away from ours." Emily nodded, though she didn't believe it. Deep down, she felt that the story wasn't over. Something inside her, some small, mysterious certainty, told her the tribe would return. And she was right. It was late afternoon when it happened. Emily and her father were mending a fence near the cattle pasture. The sky was bright, the air thick with heat. Then a sound drifted through the silence, a rhythmic, distant thunder, hooves, many of them. Her father stopped mid-swing, his hammer still raised. He turned toward the ridge, his eyes narrowing against the sunlight. From the shimmering horizon came a line of riders. Dust rose behind them like a moving storm. For a heartbeat, her father froze in disbelief. Then he said softly, "It's them." Emily's heart leapt. She dropped the wooden post she was holding and ran toward the cabin. Her mother came rushing out, shielding her eyes from the sun. The horses drew closer, 10, 20, maybe more. But they didn't come in anger. Their formation was calm, steady, and in front rode the same tall chief who had once knelt before Emily in the snow. When the riders reached the ranch, they stopped a respectful distance away. The chief dismounted, his leather garments catching the sunlight, the eagle feathers in his hair stirring gently in the breeze. Behind him, the same young woman Emily had helped slid down from her horse, holding her baby, now stronger, healthier, and smiling. Emily couldn't hold back. She ran across the dusty yard, barefoot as before. The woman laughed softly and knelt down, catching Emily in her arms. The baby reached out, grasping at her hair with tiny fingers. The child's blanket, her blanket, was still there, wrapped warmly around its small body. "You come back!" Emily cried, her face lighting up. The woman nodded, her broken English smoother now. "Yes, we come. We remember you." She looked up at Emily's parents, who stood nearby, cautious but not afraid. The chief stepped forward then, his deep voice calm and commanding. "Your daughter," he said, looking at Emily's father, "gave life. We come to give back." Emily's father didn't understand. "Give back?" he repeated. The chief gestured to his warriors. One of them led forward 2 horses, tall, strong, shining with good health. Their coats glistened like polished bronze in the sun. "For her kindness," the chief said, "and for peace between us." Emily's father was speechless. He had never seen such fine horses. "That's too much," he stammered. "We can't accept—" But the chief raised a hand. "You must. A gift given in cold must return with the sun." There was something sacred in his tone, something that carried the weight of old tradition. Emily's mother stepped forward then, her eyes soft. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Your people are kind." The chief turned to Emily. "The baby you saved," he said, pointing to the little child in the woman's arms. "His name is Apache. He lived because of you. Our tribe call him the child of 2 sons. One from our people, one from yours." Emily smiled shyly, unsure how to respond. The baby giggled, reaching toward her again. The chief's expression softened, and for a moment the air seemed to hold its breath. Then he said something in Apache, and his warriors dismounted one by one, each placing a hand over their hearts and bowing slightly to the little girl. It was a gesture of honor, a silent promise that her name would not be forgotten. But what happened next would shake everyone even deeper. As the tribe prepared to leave, a loud crack echoed from the nearby hills. The horses startled. Everyone turned. From behind a rocky slope, 2 armed settlers appeared, men from a nearby town who had long distrusted the Apache. "Get back," one of them shouted, raising his rifle. "Don't you move!" Emily's father stepped forward. "Stop! They're not here to fight." But fear had already poisoned reason. One of the settlers fired a warning shot that struck the ground near the chief's feet. The warriors tensed, ready to draw their weapons. The air turned electric, trembling on the edge of chaos. Emily screamed, running between them. "Stop, please!" she cried. "They're my friends." Everyone froze. The settlers looked stunned, the warriors uncertain. The chief, standing still as stone, watched her with deep, steady eyes. Slowly he lifted his hand, signaling his men to hold. Then he turned to the armed settlers. "This child," he said in broken English, "is brave. You hurt her heart. You hurt us all." His calm power silenced everything. The wind stopped, the dust settled. Even the settlers lowered their rifles, ashamed. One of them muttered an apology and backed away, realizing the enormity of what they had nearly done. The chief nodded once, a gesture of forgiveness, then turned back to Emily's family. "We came with peace," he said. "Now we go with peace." He placed his hand on Emily's head. "You are the bridge between worlds," he said softly. "Never forget what kindness can do." And with that, he mounted his horse. The warriors followed, their silhouettes framed against the burning gold of the afternoon sun. The woman looked back one last time, smiling through tears, before disappearing into the horizon with the child in her arms. For a long time no one spoke. The wind carried only the sound of distant hoofbeats fading into silence. Emily's father knelt beside her. "You saved us all, sweetheart," he whispered. "You saved more than one life today." That night, as stars filled the sky over the quiet ranch, Emily sat by the window, clutching a small feather the chief had given her. It glowed softly in the firelight, simple, pure, eternal. She didn't know it then, but the tribe would tell her story for generations. They would speak of the winter when the child of the settlers gave warmth to the child, of the Apache, the moment that turned strangers into kin and fear into faith. And somewhere under the same stars, a baby slept in a blue blanket, safe and warm, while a small girl miles away whispered a prayer of gratitude. 2 souls forever connected by one selfless act in the cold dawn. As the wind rustled the desert grass outside her window, Emily smiled and whispered, "Good night, little Apache." And the desert whispered back, carrying her voice across the vast, silent plains, reminding the world that compassion, once given, never fades. If you'd like, comment and subscribe. Written in the same cinematic storytelling tone for smooth YouTube narration. Would you like me to create that next?